mulch myself into pieces.
I'm coming back this summer.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Hacker Slash. If you're joining us again, welcome back. What is this, a reunion? If this is your first time listening, welcome to the party. We are a horror movie review podcast dedicated to telling you whether a movie is a hack,
A total joke, a waste of time,
or a slash.
Totally killer, pun intended.
We believe horror is for everyone, and as such, we're rating these movies with the perspective we've gained from our varying walks of life and the flavors of fear we fancy most. My name is Chris, I'm your friendly neighborhood slasher enthusiast. This week I'm joined by the classic horror connoisseur Sean.
Some psycho in a raincoat did it.
And the paranormal paramour, Binks.
What about you, Zoe? You must have some dirty little secrets.
This week we're commemorating the 4th of July by checking out the third entry in a summer slasher franchise, before its next entry hits theaters later this month.
And if you support the show, you can stick around after this episode for the B-side where we get into our predictions for the upcoming requel, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Nearly a decade after a hook-wielding killer joined the summer slasher pantheon, the franchise dared to return without its original cast or its creative team. This week's film takes us from the real idyllic coast of Southport to the, for some reason, fictional town of Broken Ridge, Colorado. We're introduced to a group of teens enjoying 4th of July festivities, but their night of fun is disrupted by a secret pact with deadly consequences. And, unsurprisingly, 1 year later, they're forced to face their reckoning as someone begins picking them off one by one. This week, we're talking about I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Who's seen this one before?
You know, I want to say I'll always know what you did last summer, but I honestly don't think I do because I can't recall ever seeing this one before, to be honest. And unless I suppress this deep in my memory from years ago when it came out, I don't think I've seen this one before until I watched it for the podcast. So it's new to me.
I can say confidently I have never seen this movie, and I think I only knew that it existed maybe like my first year of being on the pod, looking through like episodes that we've done and then getting curious about what episodes we could do, and came across it. Decided to forget that it existed when I saw its abysmal rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and then Chris and I said, man, 4th of July, we got to do something. Oh, that's right. This exists.
Well, to be fair, we also had to do it before we get to the next movie. So, you know,
You got to get through it.
We're not quite in our villain era, you know? Listen, I've seen the original I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel, obviously. We've done both of them on the show. We even did a rewind on I Know What You Did Last Summer. And neither of those movies ever really topped like my personal favorites list, but they do have a very specific late 90s charm. And there was always this grounded quality to them, right? So we have small town guilt, we have whispered secrets, we have a killer who was terrifying because he wasn't supernatural. He was just a guy in a suit. He was real. He was vengeful. He was human. But I learned about this movie after I heard about the Amazon Prime kind of like reboot of the franchise and its adaptation into a TV series. I was really excited about that. And then I heard that it sucked, much like I heard that this movie sucked. So really, my hopes not super high going into this. So I didn't expect brilliance. I had only overheard it was terrible. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's going to be dumb fun. You know, we just did Jason X. Maybe it's going to be the kind of movie that you throw on during a bad movie night, laugh with some friends. And at the very least, I expected this cohesive tone with a few creative kills. But fuck, man. The second I started this movie, I realized that bar too high still.
Too high for sure. I think you touched on some good stuff there. Being a fan of the original, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the cast of that movie, it's the nostalgic feeling it gives you of your childhood. You know what I mean? And the second one, obviously, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, fun, kind of like a little bit fresh, right, with the story. So that was kind of cool. So, you're kind of going into this one, if you hadn't seen it, despite what you heard, hoping that it's able to capture some part of the feeling of its predecessors. That's what you're hoping for. But yes, when you see like the terrible ratings that this movie has, when you hear the terrible things you hear people talking about this movie, you also can't go into this movie really expecting more than just some really average slasher. And that's like maybe based on what you're reading and hearing, hoping to at least be average.
I feel like with a film that goes straight to DVD, the expectations kind of default at this isn't going to be good. But I always try to hold on hope just a smidge. But I mean, this time around, I was like, it was thin ice. I was like, oh man, I feel like this can't be good, but let's give it a shot. I actually do like a good amount of early 2000s films, so I figured, okay, maybe this is going to be very silly. I'm in the mood for something ridiculous. Like you said, a movie that you can just throw on for a bad movie night and have a good time with it. When I saw the 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, when I had to pay for this movie, okay, when I rented it, 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I wasted $4 on this, I was like, oh boy. Oh man,
it's a good thing our economy is so shitty that you can't get much else for $4. To be fair,
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, it's just I knew it was going to be a disaster from the start. I knew it. I said 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Still, 20 some odd years later, is a masterpiece of a feat. That's incredible work.
Wow,
consistent.
Yeah, maybe this movie just needs to age like fine wine and really find its audience in a couple decades. Listen.
Somewhere. A couple more decades, Chris? It's already been.
Hey, we'll see. Listen, from the jump, when I watched this movie, I felt bored. And that's the problem here. Because this wasn't even bored. In the slow burn kind of bored, It's the, why am I watching this? Kind of way.
Yeah. Just the way it's edited makes you not want to watch it.
Yeah, it's just peak early 2000s bullshit. No fucking thank you. I was frustrated almost immediately. And I want you to know, and especially because I'm so passionate about horror movies, I'm so passionate about this show, even at these movies' worst, I never feel like a heavy sense of burden or obligation because I love watching this bullshit for this show, for these conversations, for our community. And this got really fucking close. This got really fucking close to that feeling. Like the audio wasn't immersive. The pacing just dragged. The characters gave nothing for you to hold on to, which is disappointing because you're going to recognize at least two of them. And it's just, I caught myself snapping back and having to remind myself why we had to get through this movie. And that is to get to the requel and to know that we are closing the book on this franchise without this thing dangling like a kick can down the road. This movie fucking wore me out. This movie wore me out.
Yeah, it definitely took a toll. It took a toll on me. And it's funny because I was right about this sense of the early 2000s oozing from the film's pores, like right from the jump. But my problem is that it thinks that it's Saw. It thinks that it's early 2000s dad rock music video. But instead, what this movie achieved is this idea that I'm like, does Gen Z look at the early 2000s and think, oh, this is what this was? When I think of the early 2000s, I think of a good time. I think of, like all of the grit, the Rob Zombie and the Saw and I don't know, like those quick edits a little bit. And sure, some of it is so like cheesy and ridiculous. Fine. But some of it lands for me. I think of the reboots that we got in the early 2000s of Jason or, even for Nightmare on Elm Street, some of these little things, right? That I thought were really, really great and fun to me.
I'm sorry. Wow. Ooh. I was like, I went from such a high about to back your ass up. You know what I mean? I was like, fuck
until I said I know what you did last summer.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
The Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah.
Okay, but we know that I like that because it has my man in it. So.
I never knew you liked it. What the fuck?
Oh, newsflash.
No.
For everyone.
Okay. The
Wait.
Friday the 13th
it's
reboot,
not like
amazing. The Texas Chainsaw reboot, amazing.
Amazing.
Nightmare
Jessica
on Elm
Biel.
Street, what the fuck?
I watch
are
it
you
every year.
About?
Nightmare on Elm Street's not it's not the worst thing in the world. It's certainly not up there for the rest of the franchise. Hold on, let's all relax. Let's all take a breather. Let's all take a breather.
Getting heated.
We're also, is that a movie we need to revisit? Is that a movie that we need to
I don't think so.
Battle it out for? That could be fun. Listeners, let us know. However,
Binks wants to talk about it.
All I'm saying is that I feel like I remember the 2000s that way. And then this movie made me feel like, oh my God, I'm old as fuck. Oh my God, the 2000s weren't cool. Am I even cool? Is this what Gen Z thinks of me and millennials?
Probably. It's probably exactly. Listen, I kind of get what you're saying. For me, like, I think of early 2000s, I think of The Ring, you know what I mean? Like horror movies like that. But then this is not a good reflection of that. This feels like more like some high school kids started a band in the early 2000s and tried to make their own music video with the first camera they ever bought. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it feels like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here's the thing. I also think of The Ring for the early 2000s, but there is some editing within The Ring that kind of tracks with some of the other popular films of the early 2000s, like the sound, right? When I think of when the TV's on in The Ring, the sound that it makes from the static, that kind of grit is quintessential for the early 2000s, and especially in horror. This was like, what budget did they even have? What did they do? Nothing. It was really bad. It was a bad rep. It's a bad rep for the 2000s.
I'm sorry. I'm just like stuck because I'm thinking about all the
You're still stuck on Elm Street. Chris hasn't left Elm Street.
This is going to be a double episode. We're going to review this movie, but we're also going to review Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'm thinking about the amazing movies that you have hacked, and you like the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot?
The amazing movies that I've hacked?
You've had some good movies.
Amazing movies that I've hacked? What?
I'm going to go down
Friday
the
the 13th
list.
movies?
Okay.
Jason Takes Manhattan?
Whoa.
Amazing movie?
I never said those were amazing, but you have hacked some good ones. We're gonna pin this in the B side, and we're gonna revisit this later in the episode. But listen, I have never, ever, I think, watched a movie fall so far from grace from its predecessor. And I mean, listen, nothing about this movie works. Nothing about this movie works for me. I think the biggest surprise that I had was how quickly this thing falls off the rails and fails. Like the inciting incident, completely ridiculous. Not even like the, oh wow, it's so charming and funny or cheeky. And obviously it's going to be unbelievable. But like, no, this is just like poorly executed. And the acting, wooden. Genuinely wooden. The dubbing sounds like it was done in a closet. And I need you to know that about the point where I should have known we were completely fucked, it's called Broken Ridge, Colorado. And I know I mentioned that in the beginning of the episode, in the introduction, but why they had to go for Broken Ridge instead of just Breckenridge?
And just the actual town, you know? Maybe was that not in the budget?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, is there licensing behind the word Breckenridge? Like you can't even use an actual city?
Maybe you never know.
Maybe they just didn't want to be that fucking offended. I don't know. However,
I mean, it's good for Breckenridge because at least they don't have the reputation of this fucking movie.
Yeah,
very
true.
Home
of I'll always know what you did last summer. Home of that one random fisherman movie. Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, two things that did pleasantly surprise me. No, one of them I didn't even really like, but the guy who dies in the fire escape in Final Destination 2 is in this movie. Also, Spencer's older sister from Pretty Little Liars is in this movie.
That's the only one that caught my attention, actually. I didn't even realize that was the guy from Final Destination 2. No, it was Spencer's older sister. I was like, oh, girly pop, this is where you came from.
What up, Melissa? Let's go.
I see, Melissa. Damn, she was crazy in that show.
She did some way better things with her career after this.
Wasn't she also in the Vampire Diaries? Am I crazy?
She
Am I
was,
gaslighting myself?
but I never got far enough to see who she was.
I do.
Oh, but we also have, what's his name? The sheriff, Sheriff Davis. He was actually a deputy in Halloween 4.
He sure was. And you know what?
Yeah.
The guy who plays the killer in this movie, he played Michael Myers in Halloween 5, Don Shanks.
Dude, look at that. Look at that.
There's Halloween
connection
written all over this movie, and also not for good reasons. But it's a little bit of grace I try to give it.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a frustrating film. There's a lot of plot decisions that I think are kind of surprising. I think there's a supernatural take on this plot that I think is a little bit interesting, to say the least. You know what I mean? Also, you got to be disappointed, not to see a single returning character or anything like that, completely detached. So I feel like, I don't know. It's like one of those where it really leaned into this urban legend angle. Like it really leaned into that urban legend angle pretty heavily. I feel like, in this one. And I don't know about you guys, but a big disappointment for me is I feel like I didn't feel the impact of this secret as much as I did from previous ones. Like this just felt like, why, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's almost like for a good while there, you're wondering, what was it again? Like that was the actual secret? And truth be told, I think what surprised me was a good portion of the beginning of the film. I thought that the pacing was so fast originally, like initially, I should say, because I was like, wow, we're like jumping into this story pretty quickly. And then it slows down so fast and drags entirely that it makes you think, yeah, like, oh, that was the secret. Like, what are we even doing here again? Who's who one more time? And the connections, you get lost in how boring this film feels, despite its redundancy as well, because you feel like you already know what's going to be happening. And it tracks for the most part, but they do add like a paranormal element that Paranormal Paramore here, was even more disappointed about, because that also doesn't really like hit the mark or up the ante for anything at all. Not the stakes for the characters, not the overall plot. The atmosphere is not great. And quite honestly, that also impacts the like fright factor for this film too. I think that it doesn't really do anything to scare you. It's all formulaic and really poorly done. There's really shitty jump scares, like sudden appearances or like shadowy corners that are just terrible and not effective. So this is a movie that even if you were terrified of the smallest of things happening in a film, I promise you, I highly doubt you'd be terrified of this one.
Okay. The only thing that's scary about this film is the borderline aggressive levels of secondhand embarrassment you're going to feel at the attempt that this film dared to be. That's it. This movie tries to reach for suspense. It tries to reach for tension, but it never grabs a hold of either. And it just ends up being this weird mash of maybe trying to be a little bit funny, but mostly just awkward and poorly executed.
Yeah. It's bad when the movie has more fake jump scares than the antagonist actually has scares on screen. You know what I mean? Like when your fake outs are more robust than the actual attempts at scares. And I feel like this one also felt silly in like all the wrong reasons. And I really don't think this movie built any real fear. To your point, Chris, there's no tension, there's no suspense, just some cheap like score spikes, Philly fake outs. Like that's all you're really getting in this one. And it just, I don't know. It's strange.
You know what feels even more disrespectful than that though? The fact that this movie tried to switch things up. It said new town, who dis, new cast, who dis. We got text messages, we got notes. We're going to say the title of the movie. And we're going to say it without like actually meaning to be like, oh, I'm the one who knows what you did last summer. They tried some things.
No, I mean,
but how do you do all of that and still not be a fresh movie?
That's what I'm saying. Like the originality, you're taking this thing in a completely new direction. But let's face it, like you decided to go out. You have a fisherman fucking killer, and you took him out of a fucking goddamn port town and dropped him in a landlocked fucking mountain town. Like what the fuck? No part of that makes any sense.
Wow. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
At least give us some kind of like river or something. You know what I mean? Like, dang, crazy.
There's nothing innovative whatsoever about this movie, and much less for its plot or at the very least like its ending as well. I think like just in general, the whole plot, if I were to summarize it, like nothing new other than one thing that should have probably never been integrated. There's so many different ways that you could have gone about this with the change of scenery and cast, which already is a bit of a reach for the franchise. But fine. I mean, reboots are a thing, whatever, new setting, etc. That's literally what we're walking into in just a week's time, right? But I think what they really did here was such a fucking reach that I was like, oh boy, I'm glad this is over. And like, just in general, the originality of the film could be so many different things. Like ChatGPT could probably write a better script for this, and that's a hot take that I don't promote. But if AI was a thing at this time, I would believe it if they told me that that's what wrote the script.
Okay. The real part of this, though, is the fact that Popeye the Slayer Man was a better fish adjacent movie than this.
Jeez. I mean,
I believe it. And I haven't even seen it yet. And I believe it.
Yeah.
There it is.
Listen,
it's been said.
The other crazy thing here is this movie, you look back on the previous two films and it ends in a couple interesting ways, and they seem a little tropey, a little cliche now looking back, but they were entertaining and they hit back when these movies were coming out. This ending, though, just feels like insult to injury. It's just completely it's poor execution of a jump scare that feels like it could have been ripped from a Goosebumps episode, but the problem is that makes it sound even better than it actually is. If this wasn't already derailed, this thing just fucking threw it off a cliff.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it was like a last-ditch effort. The internet went out when they were writing the script. AI couldn't help them any further, and they were like, fuck, let's just send it. Let's just like throw in whatever we can. It's a shame because at the very least, with a really shit poor script that they had thus far, could they at least cross the finish line? Could they at least wrap this up decently? And I actually had to rewind the ending because I was like, no way. Did that just happen? Did I understand this right? And the production, too, is just not helping. It's not giving it any favors either.
Yeah. I mean, the ending for me, it just plays into the thing that I kind of dislike the most about this movie. And I get it, though. Like, it's a fun attempt to end a slasher flick for sure, right? Like, I think that's what they're going for. They just want some kind of fun little tidbit at the end for the audience and whatever. But it plays too heavily into what I completely disliked in the direction that they took this story, for lack of diving into it until we get into it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It just seemed like a really, almost like a waste of time ending. You know what I mean? Like, we could have done something more impactful than what they did.
Well, it feels like we shouldn't waste any more time getting into these scores. But before we get there, Sean, how would you describe the gore score?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the gore in this movie in some ways felt more gruesome than its predecessors. Like, there's some moments that shine through in this movie with the gore specifically where you're like, okay, all right, I can see that. It's like a little bit heavier than what I'm used to. But most of the kills, and granted, we involved the signature hook and things like that, and that's great. But the way that some of these kills are shot, the camera cuts away before any real carnage unfolds in some of these kills, and it takes away from the impact of the ones that you do get to see. And so it may be like enough to technically qualify as a slasher, but it's definitely not going to be enough to satisfy all the gore hounds out there, because even though it may feel a little bit more gruesome than previous installments in the franchise, it's still kind of like a low gore score in my book.
And what about the animal report?
The animals were safe that summer.
Let's go ahead and get into our ratings. I'll always know what you did last summer. Released direct to video in 2006. Was it a hack or a slash? And I think I'm just going to pull off the Band-Aid here. This is the kind of movie that somehow manages to be both overly complex and utterly hollow. I don't know how you pull that off. The pacing is uneven. The performances bring nothing to the table. And it feels like the script is just checking boxes without understanding what made the first film or even the second remotely compelling. It feels like an attack on the integrity and character of the franchise. There is an opportunity here to reinvent the franchise, to at least deliver a fun, low-stakes slasher. But instead of leaning into that potential, it overreaches. It takes itself too seriously when it shouldn't, and not seriously enough when it counts. And if this movie had fully embraced how absurd it was from the beginning, we might have been better off. I'd probably be sitting here defending its honor. But where Jason X leaned into itself and didn't take itself seriously and just wanted you to have a good time, this movie said, look what I can do, and then failed to stick the landing. It just exists. It drags its way through an hour and a half that feels much longer than it is. And this isn't, again, the kind of bad fun that's even fun to watch with friends. It's a kind of bad that makes you check the runtime multiple times throughout it. Not only did this movie fail to meet the tone of its predecessors, It felt completely disconnected from what came before it. And it makes itself feel like a fan film that was never meant to be canon. There is no universe in which this movie should have been anything other than a fun, dumb slasher. But if you're going to be dumb, you got to be strong. And this movie was weak as hell. It's a mess and it's a hack without hesitation.
I'll go next because truly I think that listeners could maybe gather where we're all going here. Although wouldn't it be funny if one of us just pivoted very quickly?
That's you.
That's probably not going to happen though. I'll be honest. Because listen, I think we all are fans of the original. I mean, it's a classic, right? And for me going into this one, it was like venturing into the unfamiliar, but also feeling very uninspired because what I felt like I took away from this film was people are out here making these kinds of movies. What am I doing with my life? If they could do that and put out this garbage, even if it was just straight to DVD, we could. I feel like we're talented. I feel like we got it, you know? I feel like we could put out a really great movie straight to DVD or short film out on YouTube and nail it out of the park. Because I think for me, it's like, sure, sometimes when you base something off of, let's say, Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, 0% rating is a lot. That's saying a lot. But every now and then you check those ratings and maybe they're low, but you like the film. Maybe you're against the grain. In this case, it finally felt like one of those moments where, wow, no, this is actually like there's a reason. It's not because no one reviewed the movie and it just so happens to be a 0% rating. No, people have reviewed this movie and it's 0% rating. And so far, we are also adding into that 0% rating, okay? Because it's a confirmed recycled mess. That's what this movie is. I think from the jump, it screams the 2000s that will make you question how old you are and how you're perceived. And what were you really a fan of in the early 2000s and maybe you shouldn't have, okay? With the over-the-top soundtrack, that rapid-fire editing that will make you want to scream, that like glitchy effect that just doesn't make sense. It's constant throughout the movie. And like Sean mentioned earlier, there's really no gore when this is supposed to be a fun slasher. It doesn't feel like you really get much of a payoff from a lot of these kills. It's a really bad music video at the end of the day, and it leans heavily on tired tropes and doesn't even provide anything else to help that with suspense or an aspect of originality that could see itself through, even down to the ending. It's very derivative, ultimately, and the acting, which we didn't get too into, is just really poor, considering that the cast has some good creds, has some decent creds. They're like B-list, C-list actors, sure, but they've got a filmography, or they went on to do some pretty cool things. So I think it's a really, really big disappointment and very clear as to why we haven't gotten another film in this franchise until now, several years later. So I'm glad that we did this and that it's over, and we can hopefully go into this next film with higher expectations and hope, because we're at the bottom of the barrel. This is the lowest of the low. So if you couldn't tell, this is a hack, but a hack that needed to happen so we can hold out hope for the future.
A palate cleanser, if you will.
A palate cleanser indeed.
Does not get worse than this. The next movie will not disappoint us.
Hey, maybe they started off in the negatives with Rotten Tomatoes and worked their way to a flat zero.
The concerning thing is, did friends and family even review this on Rotten Tomatoes?
Did they want to review this on Rotten Tomatoes?
I bet you that the friends and family all made excuses as to why they couldn't go on Rotten Tomatoes to rate this.
Oh, sorry, I'm allergic.
Literally.
Well, I'm going to keep this pretty short and sweet. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is a straight to DVD sequel that feels like a shitty urban legend campfire story and less like a legitimate continuation of this fucking franchise, because the editing, as we've said, is terrible in this movie. And I know they were trying to go for something like in those kill scenes, but whatever they were going for, it just came out like just too choppy, too hard to follow. It just was too much. It just made you not want to look at the screen. The acting is so bad, I almost think it had to be intentional. Like, there were moments that I had to laugh out loud while watching this movie in disbelief that I was watching this movie, as bad as it is. The supernatural angle, it falls flat. The kills are lame. They're tame. It feels like it's just wearing the skin of a better movie without understanding what made that film work in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so bad. And so if the original two films are guilty pleasures for some people because they don't hold it up to like whatever, then this one's just guilty of wasting your time. Honestly, it just really is. And so I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer is more like, I'll never watch this one again because this hook is actually a fucking hack.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer has unsurprisingly earned a universal, intensely passionate hack. Now, you can find this movie available, but do you want to? I guess would be the better question. We watched it for you, so you don't have to. So, go ahead and just hang tight. We're going to be back in a bit into the spoiler zone where we can unpack the great audacity this film had. See you in a bit.
Looking to escape the daily grind? Tired of the same old summer slumber? Maybe you're feeling haunted by your past and dreaming of a peaceful mountain getaway where no one knows what you did last summer. Then it's time to get away from your town, your guilt, and that weird guy in the rain slicker. Welcome to Ben Willis's Last Resort, a remote, scenic summer retreat where the lake is calm, the nights are quiet, and the ghost of a hook-wielding maniac definitely knows everything you're trying to forget. At Ben Willis's Last Resort, we offer campfire confessionals, surprise hook checks at night, complimentary body bags for early checkout, and a strict no secrets policy, because if you don't tell, he will. So come for the hiking, stay for the haunting, but be warned. If you've got a dirty little secret like, I don't know, accidentally killing someone and making a blood pact with your friends to never speak of it again, because Ben Willis doesn't forgive and he never forgets. Remember, this isn't just a summer escape, it's a reckoning. Ben Willis's Last Resort, where your sins get unpacked before you do. Tell him Hacker Slash sent you, and we'll throw in a complimentary pair of running shoes. You know, just in case. So book now, or better yet, don't.
Welcome back, folks. You're now entering the spoiler zone for I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer from 2006, which has earned a universal hack. Now, we have a lot to drag this movie for, but before we get down and dirty, let's go through those kills.
45 fucking minutes. It took 45 minutes for us to see a second kill in this fucking movie. That's insane. That's insane. Maybe if we got to the killing earlier, we would have had a higher kill count, but instead we're left with a disappointing 8 kills, and I'm being nice because we know the killer comes back in some form later on, and another one isn't even seen at all. But I gotta ask, which one of these kills hooked you last summer?
Okay.
Well, listen. Hold on. No. Are we? I don't know.
I don't know.
How this section always starts, doesn't it? I just have to get it out. Please forgive me. Because it's the 45-minute part that literally sent me to the depths of like anger and wrath. Because what the fuck do you even mean? I'm here for a slasher. Am I not? Am I here to review a horror movie? What the fuck am I here to review? Okay? Because the first kill that we got was basically
An
PJ.
accident.
I like just an accident. Right, correct. And then I'm like, okay, just to turn out that it was an accident. It wasn't even an actual thing going on. Because like I said, initially, I'm thinking, oh, wow, they're saying, fuck it. You already know what we're about. So let's just dive right in. And then it turns out to be a prank gone wrong, which, okay, I guess. I mean, at this point, sure, you got to invent something. So whatever, I'll roll with it. But out loud, I said to myself, did that guy Tony Hawk pro skater himself to death?
I literally said the same thing.
He for sure did. He fell off the end.
Yeah, he was grinding, did a couple ollies on the way down. Yeah.
Been there, brother. Been there.
I literally wrote, imagine Tony Hawk pro skating yourself to your own death.
Hilarious.
I have that written down almost to the T as well. Best kill, because it's so comical. I couldn't even believe it. It did inspire me to want to play the game after. So I guess, you know what?
PJ, you
Props to
dumb
you,
fuck.
movie.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, again.
Was that yours?
If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be strong. And this movie was weak, and so was PJ. What the fuck? Yeah, Sean, that was absolutely my favorite kill.
It always is, folks.
Ridiculous.
Run a tally at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a tally for how many. Honestly, we don't really see eye to eye about a lot of movies, but the kills are always the same.
Yeah, almost
so
always.
funny.
Okay, yes, that was my favorite kill. I'm gonna do a backup mention. Not because I liked it at all, but I was really upset that Zoe was a character who died. Because, man, I really would have loved if she would have been our final girl instead. And it looks like Binks and I feel the exact same fucking thing again.
Yep, we sure do. We sure do. But I think it's also because we're fans of the show.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Melissa Hastings.
So I will say, though, and I hinted at it before, I think, but Roger's kill, right? I hated the editing leading up to Roger's kill. That was like a fucking nightmare in and of itself. But the throat slicing with the hook and the aftermath shot that you get is one of those moments that I felt like took us in a more gruesome direction than the previous two installments that we got. Because I feel like the previous two installments felt like a little bit more tame with what they were visually giving you. And so like that was a glimmer of hope for Roger being the next kill that we see after PJ. Right? 45 minutes fucking later and some change, I felt like, man, okay, we finally got a kill. I like the brutality, the gruesomeness of it. It's not like we haven't seen the throat slicing with the hook before. That's a pretty common antic by this killer, right, in the franchise. But I did like how bloody it was.
No, that's true. And the thing with that kill, though, is that editing really did kill it. Like,
so bad.
Did I just give a pun myself? Yeah. Ew. That's pretend that didn't happen. But no, I feel like the editing really just like dampened the mood for what could have been like a really, really good kill and very solid, because it felt like this director was trying to be Darren Aronofsky with Requiem for a Dream and like just try to really create a moment there. And the small sliver I can give this movie is like, in general, Roger felt like a believable reaction to what the fuck has happened to these people finally in the franchise. We finally have a character that obviously has been severely impacted by the guilt of what they did. You know, it seemed to me like a very believable reaction, thus a believable lead up to a kill. But the editing just destroyed that whole bit. So
it really did.
It's a
Can
shame.
we also talk about how fucking strange his entry was a year later? He was just on that thing and then he just kind of like breaks through the doors and runs in on them. I don't even know what to call that contraption that he was on, but he was in this like factory warehouse and it was just such a dramatic entrance that didn't need to be there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. But I also want to shout out the dumbest fucking kill in this movie again. How stupid is it that a fucking ghost gets mulched to death in a snowblower?
Yeah, it's like one, it's a ghost. It has to have been some paranormal shit to begin with. But then, yes, getting mulched to death and then fucking obviously coming back again. Like just pieced himself back together somehow. That's cool.
Mulch myself into pieces.
I'm coming back this summer.
And we've had some good mulch kills in general in horror, but this was just a waste of a kill. Why would you do that to a ghost? At the very least, like if you're going to integrate something like that.
Out of this kill count. Just that one right there is robbery.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, listen.
Really is.
Okay, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. He took gunshots head on. Was not stopped. The ghost is not going to actually get mulched. How the fuck is this even? It's just movie physics and all that shit are never sound. We know this. But you cannot show me that this man is hopping gondola to gondola, then getting shot and being okay, but suddenly subjected to mulching. Yeah. Just now.
It maybe it was, lined with holy water or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe the snow melted just enough in Broken Ridge, Colorado, in the middle of the fucking summer. This just it's ridiculous, honestly. And
it is.
Okay, you all mentioned Roger's death being watered down and just lessened and cheapened by that editing. And I 100%, I hate the editing, full stop. That early 2000s flash style with quick flashes, motion blurred, weird double exposures, it's not it for me. The movie tries to glitch on purpose, but it completely destroys any chance that you have attention. Now, there are two moments that I did really like aesthetically. And when you hate a movie so much, you gotta be real specific with your compliments. So here we go. The ski lift scene. Not because it was scary, but the visual of the killer dangling from the top of the gondola, it worked. All right. It reminded me of a little bit of a Michael Myers Halloween moment. Again, I'll talk about that later in favorite scenes. But the other moment, and maybe this really just speaks to the overall composition and framing of the film, there was a moment where Lance was facing away from the camera and he was having a conversation and his face was framed in the motorcycle's mirror during that conversation. So we could still see both people talking. I actually paused and I rewound it to look at it again. I was like, oh, look at you all being very creative. I don't know that I ever cared to see someone else's face. Like when I'm looking over their shoulder, I don't know that I ever cared to see that. But you all specifically walked this pair of people over to that motorcycle for this very reason. Good for you.
Interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, those moments, maybe they put just some extra thought into those moments. You know what I mean? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I guess I can appreciate the fact that they at least kept the integrity of the look for the killer, Fisherman, the ghost of Ben Willis or whatever the fuck at this point. You know what I mean? The look and the hook. It's iconic. We like that.
The look and the hook.
The look and the hook. But no, I mean, like if you have to give credit anywhere in this movie, I'm gonna have to go with like the makeup and effects team, because I do think they did a pretty good job there. And we actually do have a pretty star-studded makeup and effects team with portfolios like ranging from Army of Darkness to Cabin in the Woods and even like Halloween H2O and Saw. Like all these people that worked on this makeup and effects team were involved in this, makeup and effects for these movies as well. So you can kind of see why like some of those moments shined through. It just sucks that they were planted in the shell of this movie, because
yet
just
they
no
assembled
hope
here.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? It really is. And to go along with that, though, I would also say wardrobe was also pretty decent, but it could very well be, because I just like Zoe and obviously her vibe and her outfits, because we all know that there's always got to be that one girl that they go through something traumatic and all of a sudden they're emo goth, okay? They're starting their own rock band, and the vibes and the looks were really giving me in the early 2000s. I wanted to be her going into my freshman year of high school, and the outfits were slaying. I was like, damn, if I could give like any positive like feedback for this movie, it's 1,000% those outfits that I feel like today, considering that a lot of things are coming back now, a lot of things are trendy. We've got a lot of the Y2K parties and themes. Although this movie will make you feel like, oh, this is why we get made fun of sometimes. Those outfits might actually cross over to get some positive reassurance for the early 2000s.
I do want to at least give a little bit of credit. I don't know that Zoe suddenly turned to that aesthetic a year later after that, because at least the rock band of it all, she specifically was called out at the very beginning of the movie for being the next American Idol.
No. Let me be very, very specific. Okay. I'm going to, little pop culture for a moment. There's a character in Gossip Girl. All right. Taylor Momsen's the actress that plays her. I think that's her name. She starts off preppy, wants to get along with the popular girls, whatever. But in this particular case, what I'm trying to say is she's wearing color, and yes, she sings. Now, later on in the show, she's like dark eyeliner, goth, Avril Lavigne.
It's a little heavier.
Girl. Heavier makeup, the heavier vibes for sure. And the actress along with her character that she plays in Gossip Girl is now like, I think she's in Warped Tour right now or something ridiculous like that.
Are we talking about Gossip Girl, like the WB show Gossip Girl?
Yes, that one.
Oh.
Which, wait a minute, if we really think about it, it's also giving most of this cast and what Zoe, the actress Zoe, and what she ended up doing, CW, WB, maybe there's another pipeline I'm talking about. Listen, all I'm trying to say is that for Zoe, yes, she was a singer, she wanted to be famous, etc., but she was wearing color at the beginning, and then everything happened, and all of a sudden, she went alt. And I'm okay with that. And I love it. I'm here for it. That's it.
Okay. One shade of purple she wears in the beginning, and all of a sudden she's old.
I'm onto something. I know that someone's going to agree with me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I guess she was just so, I would say, not the focus of the opening scene for me. I was just so distracted by the Tony Hawk Pro Skating death that I never once paid attention to the aesthetic of what she was wearing, because she just seemed like the same person to me a year later.
Maybe it's because she just spoke to me a little bit more.
Maybe.
And like me at 14 in 2006 of being like, I wanted to dress just like her as like it progressed, as the film progressed.
That's fine. That's
the
fair.
style of it all.
Okay, respect. Listen, there isn't a single scene in this movie that I fully appreciated and loved. Not a single one. But
right?
There
it's hard.
are fractions of scenes, and we all know I've never been good at fractions. Now, I want to highlight two moments completely disconnected from each other that stand out because they reminded me of flickers of Halloween. Now, the first is that gondola attack. It's one of the few sequences that feels like someone in this production had a vision. And the execution didn't live up to it entirely, but we get that moment where the glass breaks because of the hook. That instantly gave me flashbacks to the 1978 Halloween when Michael smashes the car window with a wrench and Nurse Marion gets out of the car. It's not as effective here, for sure, but the resemblance, it was enough to get my attention in an otherwise terrible movie. All right. Now, the second is more blink and you'll miss it, and it's really a stretch. I know that I'm being really fucking generous here, but PJ's dad, the sheriff, scares Amber and Zoe a year after PJ's death. Yeah. What does that remind you of, Sean?
Oh, no. I know the scene.
So it's such a small beat, but it felt like a spiritual nod to Sheriff Brackett surprising Lori before he drops the line about everyone being entitled to one good scare. Again, it's not enough to save the movie, but it is enough to make me say, okay, someone on set has seen a slasher movie before. And again, Sean, you already mentioned it, but it was made even better by the fact that the sheriff actually played a deputy in Halloween 4.
Yeah, I knew there was a connection there too, and I just couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew it reminded me of something like that I'd seen in Halloween. Okay, I got it. Thank you for pulling that together. Man, I get it. Like, it's hard to find a solid, full, great scene in this movie, and I'm really trying. Like, I'm not actively trying to like shit all over this movie. You know what I mean? I honestly think the best shot in this movie was that picture of the dead tree in Amber's room. You know what I mean? I really honestly think that might be the best shot in the whole movie. No, but you're so right, Chris. There's just moments. There's like little fractions. There's these little snippets that are just kind of fun. Because you gotta, at the end of the day, if you're sitting through this whole fucking movie from start to finish, you gotta at least try to have fun with the movie in some way. And so I have some things that just, they made me laugh, but they didn't make me laugh in a good way. But either way, it made me laugh. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about this. Let's talk about the logistics of writing the message on the pool in water that was slowly drying as Colby or whatever looks down. Like, first of all, no. I'm sorry. No, it's not happening. What did you do that with your fucking big toe? Like, how did you make that happen, first of all? And no, it's just perfect. It's not that. I don't understand. That was no way, sir. No way.
I full on fucking just laughed on mute because that was so good. No, I thought the same thing. And that was also when I knew, like, oh, this shit's paranormal. It has to be because what the fuck was that?
Okay.
Great handwriting, though.
I love, Binks, that you can connect that to being paranormal because I connected it to being thoughtless, tactless, poorly executed. Okay, but just seconds before that, I really had the vibe that Colby and Zoe were going to fucking secretly hook up in the pool shack.
Right.
Because they were too fucking close to each other. They were too close. The tension, it was there. It was giving Zoe and Colby hooked up behind Amber's back. Clearly, that's not the road that they took, but it was giving that potential.
Mm-hmm. The energy was there.
That kind of drama and tea would have made this movie just a smidge better. And that's, I mean, incredible, actually, to say out loud. That was a good moment for the very, very, very few and extremely limited that there are. I have to probably say the rock band moment, I suppose. You know, like nothing like a little musical number to just, at the very least, really drive home that this is a really bad music video that just went a little too fucking long. I was like, all right, this reminds me of like when every movie and every TV show, which to an extent I feel like we've gone back there, has a musical number. There's always a musical number in something. And this time around, I honestly would have fucked with it. I was like, all right, I can vibe with this. Is this on Spotify? I mean, I'll throw it on, I suppose. And it also was a testament to what I think is like very interesting when it comes to these characters. These characters, their dynamic is so strange because even in that scene in particular, the dedication to go to this girl's show was hilarious. Okay. They full on forgot that they were going to die, that they were being hunted. They said, let's stop because we want to support her, our queen. We want to support our little alt rock girly. Okay. She's going to be famous if she doesn't die. So let's go and support. And they were cheering her on and they were having a fun little time in the dressing room. And she says, guys, let's relax. It's not like anything's going to happen this minute. Well, as we know, of course, something did happen, but it's those moments in slashers that always get me and make me laugh because it's like there is no like perception of reality. That's like no thoughts going through these people's heads.
Okay.
When it comes to terror.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Colby doesn't want to fucking go to the show, right? He's just really trying to get out of town. He's trying to follow the exit strategy. Why the fuck is he the one who wanders off by himself to find a bar?
You know?
Yeah. Listen, these characters are so fucking paper thin, they could blow over with just the slightest hint of AC. Amber, passive as fuck. Uncompelling as a final girl.
I just want to know why the big swing for Amber. You know, the big question I have for Amber as a character is literally starts off as the person that is the one person that wants to like come clean. There always is the one, you know what I mean? And she's that one. And then, you know, flash forward a year later, she's literally the one active, like being the activist for keeping our mouths shut. You know what I mean? Well, she does a complete 180.
We had our chance. Too late now. You know what this? She got a taste of the good life. Lost her integrity. Lost her morals.
Man. Absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. But just to go along with Binks's point about people losing grasp on terror and having time to go to a fucking show and then Colby going to a fucking bar. What about Lance and Amber just casually hooking up in the middle of all this? What the fuck? Listen, and again, slashers, we know that there are constantly sex scenes in slashers. Not that they even did that, right? It's always there. But usually it's there before shit goes down and not them just hooking up and canoodling and taking the second to get close while they're trying to catch their breath knowing that shit's going down. I
just don't even know. How is it that you like get turned on in that moment? How do your parts work when something like that is happening to you? Like,
you're 18.
Very concerning.
Cheap thrills, you know? Cheap thrills.
Shit. It doesn't make sense to me. And like you said, of course, that's the bit. That's the classic trope in a lot of these moments. But it never like stops. You know, like it's just constant. And so the reaction is always constant. And the reaction will always be, what the fuck are you guys doing? And that part like never ends. You can always count on those things happening and then the reaction being like, it would never be me. Because I would be like, get off me. We have things to do. And I certainly wouldn't go to a concert. Sorry, Zoe. Go, get famous. I don't know if you even make it, but I'm going to be out of here. I'm going to be long gone.
Yeah. I mean, I also think it was hilarious when Lance and Amber are like hiding from the sheriff or whatever and then get caught because of the reaction that they have to this fucking abnormally, insanely huge spider that's crawling on Lance. Like, what the fuck? Are we in like an arachnid like horror movie? Are we in a creature feature? That thing is probably the real killer in this fucking movie. And dude, if a spider that big was crawling on my body, I would probably flip the fuck out. The reactions in this movie just were not there. The reaction to that giant spider, not there. The reaction to stumbling upon dead bodies, definitely not there. They're just so nonchalant about the whole fucking thing.
You know what that felt like? That was like the prequel to Sting. That spider was the prequel to Sting.
Mm-hmm.
It was humongous. And girl, you are being hunted. The spider's probably not going to do anything to you. What a way to give yourself away in a moment. Like, fucking get your shit together, woman.
Yeah.
Let the spider be. It's the least of your fucking problems.
Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Listen, the real crime in this movie is how shitty they were to PJ's dad. Because that poor man lost his son to some dumb bullshit and then got at the end of it.
Damn. That's so true.
He really died Tony Hawk pro skating himself. Okay? Like, lest we not forget.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
And then that's how he gets treated throughout the whole movie.
You know what the real through line is in this year of our show? Rod's going through people.
Yeah, there's a lot of rods penetrating people, that's for sure, on this show.
We had it in Jason X. We had it in Final Destination.
We're getting it here. We're getting it everywhere.
Did we have that in Bride of Frankenstein? I don't know. Spiritually.
No.
You know, spiritually.
No, yeah.
With that explosion, something's probably going through somebody.
There was a rod.
I was going to say there was a rod. That's for sure.
Okay, listen, the only highlight of this movie, and yes, it's a character, but truly one of the only redeeming parts of this is Zoe, or more specifically, the actress who plays her. Because again, clocking her as Spencer's older sister from Pretty Little Liars made this 2% more fun. And that was probably the most fun I had watching this entire thing. Obviously, this is not her best work. Obviously, she goes on and does way better stuff with her career after this. But I will acknowledge that she brings some actual presence to her scenes. And all I could think about the entire movie was how she should have been the final girl. How the fuck did she get cast as Zoe when Amber exists as a character? Like, what the fuck is that? Okay. It didn't go that way. We didn't get her as the final girl, but her energy and performance stood out from an otherwise flat cast.
Listen, you're saying, the best part might be Zoe Binks. Sounds like you liked Zoe. You liked the band. I get it. I feel like maybe just the best part of the movie is just the name of their band, Zoe and the Hooks. You know what I mean? Because it just plays so well into the theme. It's so clever. I'm just trying to find something nice.
That's a good one. It is a little clever. Yeah. It's kind of like is it Susie and the Banshees? Is that how you say? I can never say her name right. I got to be real, but it's kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah.
The real crime is that it wasn't a girl group.
That would have been cool. That would have been cool. Listen, obviously it's very tough to find a best part overall. Maybe the best part is just that we're getting another movie. Let's pretend this isn't the end. Let's pretend this never happened.
Yeah.
Let's pretend it never happened, and maybe it's for the best.
Yeah. I want this movie to be buried. I never want to think about it again. I never want to see this movie again. I want this to be something that we all have a pact on that we'll never fucking speak of again. And if anyone does bring it up again, your ass is going to get, I know what you did last summer.
I know what you watched last summer.
No.
What's going to happen.
It's one of those films where and this is very few and far between, but we talk about the mean one, like it's a joke and it's funny and we'll revisit that. That's a bit. This one isn't even worth that kind of time. You know how shitty that has to be? That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
I would not rewatch this movie in a million years. I paid $4 for this film, $4 that I'll never get back. All right. $4 that I will never get back. I'm not rewatching this. And if this new film has the audacity to tie in anything from this movie, I'm going to throw hands.
No.
What if they reference how bad it is?
Oh my God. If they
pull a Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, where like this was actually a movie within the movie within the movie, some bullshit like that. I don't even know. I just lost myself saying that out loud. That would be hilarious.
There could be just some really quick, witty line about like some shitty town in Colorado. You know what I mean? Like that's all we need.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Okay, this is what we need: a betting board, I know what you did last summer, bingo. Is there going to be some kind of Easter egg for Broken Ridge, Colorado? Applicable things.
They named it Broken Ridge. You
so
say
crazy.
it out loud and people are like, she means Breckenridge. No, folks. Broken Ridge. What in the fuck?
Yeah, it was an interesting choice. And I'm with you. I don't think I'll be watching this one again. I'm actually perfectly fine going back and watching the first two movies and getting ready to watch this requel coming up.
Wow. Again, folks, we watch this bullshit so you don't have to. But for now, there you have it. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer has earned a universal hack. And we've certainly had a robust discussion here, but the hate for this movie doesn't end here by any means.
Now, if you want to find out what we did last summer, consider supporting the show by visiting patreon.com/hackerslash. And don't worry, it's no secret that this is where you can get more of the show, including bonus content with early access, extended episodes with our B-sides, movie nominations, and live shows.
And if you enjoyed listening to us hate on this summer, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. This helps us to continue to deliver great content for all you horror fiends out there.
We'll see you next time, folks. And remember, the secret dies with you.
This sucks. I'm going to go get another cocktail.